everyone, welcome to another episode of Dollar Dialogue. Today we're here to talk about a very unconventional topic. We're here to talk about cricket, but we're going to tie it with the field of economics and finance and politics. Our topic of discussion today is episode 31, Cashing in on Cricket. How this sport is scoring big economically with Mr. Kazi Cyrus Ahmed. Mr. Kazi Cyrus Ahmed is a senior at Richard Montgomery High School in the US, and he likes cricket, the sport of cricket, and he likes talking about economics and finance. But what's more interesting on Mr. Kazi Cyrus Ahmed is that he 24/7 watches cricket. He 24/7 looks at the sport of cricket. He plays cricket a lot, and he's also very much interested in different cricketing activities and tournaments such as IPL and the Bangladesh Premier League and the Pakistan and the cricket league in Pakistan, and he's very much interested in cricket. Yeah, and he plays cricket 24/7. As long as I've known him, he has played cricket on his phone whenever I was with him, and he loves talking about cricket, and that's why we're very glad to have him here with us today. Mr. Kazi Cyrus Ahmed, is there anything that you'd like to add to the introduction that I've just said?
No, I think you did a very good job.
Thank you, Mr. Kazi Cyrus Ahmed. Now let's get down to our discussion today, which is episode 31, Cashing in on Cricket. How this sport is scoring big economically. Now, first to talk about, cricket has over 2.5 billion fans globally, with major concentrations in South Asia, Australia, the UK, the Caribbean, and Africa. And the 2023 ICC Men's Cricket World Cup had reached over 1.4 billion viewers globally. And the sport is expanding into non-traditional markets such as the United States and the Middle East, largely driven by lucrative T20 leagues and international matches. And there also has been introduction of the major cricket league MLC in the US to tap into a dormant fan base of around 30 million people. As of 2023, the ICC World Cup has generated around $1.4 billion in economic impact for India across its 10 cities. And there has been direct revenue from ticket sales, sponsorships, and broadcasting rights, which exceed over $800 million. And over 35,000 international visitors visited India for the World Cup, contributing an estimated $861 million to tourism sectors, hotels, airlines, and restaurants. And each international tourist spent approximately $2,000 with an average stay of over 5 nights. And more than 48,000 full-time and part-time jobs were supported by the sport of cricket during the World Cup, benefiting sectors from stadium management to travel services. And Caribbean nations like Barbados saw revenue spikes during events such as the 2024 ICC Men's T20 World Cup, with the local hotels supporting up to 95% occupancy rates during match weeks. And the Indian Premier League, also known as the IPL, during the Indian Premier League has reached a valuation of around $11 billion as of 2023, a 75% increase over the previous year. And the broadcasting rights for IPL 2023 were sold for a record $6.2 billion to companies like Viacom, 18, and Disney. And the average salary per player is among the highest in global sports, with IPL contracts like those of Virat Kohli and Sam Curran exceeding $2.5 million annually. And the Indian Premier League has contributed over $300 million annually to India's GDP through infrastructure development, employment, and tourism. And the other leagues, including the Big Bash League in Australia, has a gross revenue of approximately $20 million annually, focusing on entertainment-driven T20 matches. And the 100 in the UK is also projected to attract $500 million in external investments via private equity in the next 3 years. So what's your opinion on the field of cricket, and how do you think this field is going to expand in the next few years? Mr. Cyrus Ahmed, Shazib Karim, or Arif Malik? Mr. Arif Malik, I see your hand is raised. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, apologies. The mic wasn't turning on. So yeah, I think that the preface that you gave about cricket was really, really interesting, because from talking with my friends around the globe, I've noticed a very common pattern. And the common pattern is that most people often think of cricket as the insect, not as the sport. And I think this speaks volumes. Cricket as we know it is I come from Bangladesh, and so do all of the people present in this podcast today. And to us, cricket is sort of a religion. Everyone loves cricket. Everyone has been playing cricket ever since our birth, and cricket is something that we have grown up with. But I've noticed one thing, and the thing is that cricket is often prevalent in this sort of in the British, sort of in the countries that was sort of ruled by the British, and it is especially prevalent in the Indian subcontinent, of course, because the British ruled it for over 200 years. And I think this is the reason why cricket is sort of prevalent in India, in the Indian subcontinent, and places like Australia, England, and South Africa. But since Indian subcontinent comprises over 1 billion people, obviously majority of the spectators are from there, and particularly I would like to talk about the economy of cricket, particularly in the IPL sector. So to provide some statistics about the Indian Premier League, firstly I would like to talk about the billion-dollar ecosystem that the IPL has. The IPL was launched in 2008, and it has transformed the way traditional cricket was played, because cricket initially was played for days and days, and I think many people realize that we simply don't have the time in this globalized world, and we simply don't have the patience to watch cricket for days and days, which is why the IPL was launched, which comprises of the T20 format, where where the duration has reduced to, let's say, 4 or 5 hours with 20 overs, and the IPL's valuation exceeds over $10 billion, making it one of the most valuable sports globally. Yet this is still not known by most of the people around the globe. And to provide some more statistics, the IPL's 2023 to 2027 media rights deal was sold for over $6 billion with Disney and Viacom, as all of you stated. So it just goes on to show that there's a billion-dollar ecosystem going on, but it is still unheard of. Additionally, I would like to talk about the revenue streams through which IPL, primarily the IPL, derives its incomes from. Particularly, I would like to talk about the media and broadcasting rights, because I think this is something that is not really talked about. In the IPL, for instance, the media rights are primarily owned by streaming platforms like Jio Cinema in India, and they have further monetized digital viewership with targeted advertisement. And I think this media right, where companies like Jio Cinema sort of have an oligopoly in the market, is something that is not allocatively efficient. But if you think about it from an economic standpoint, this is the best that we can do in order to stimulate audiences. And I would say, other than that, the another important aspect of IPL is the sheer volume of people in stadiums like 1KD and Eden Gardens. It housed thousands and thousands of people, over tens and thousands of people. And I think primarily one of the advantages that cricket has is the sheer volume, the sheer passion, the sheer aspect of it that people have sort of embedded in their lives. So I would say, based on that, the economy of cricket, from my point of view, is that it is spot on in terms of number wise. But I would like to know more of what you guys think, because I think domestically this is doing pretty good, and in the Indian subcontinent, but I think this lacks, cricket as a sport lacks global engagement. And I think if people globally around the world acknowledge cricket and sort of saw the potential it has, I think it could become the world's greatest sport.
Yeah, and to add on, Arif, I'd agree with you. Like cricket, it's a very enjoyable sport, and then whether it can be the world's greatest sport, I mean, of course it has potential, like every other sport. But I'd say, Arif, you talked a bit about the key revenue streams, and I think, and you also touched on like the broadcasting rights and everything. And I think, to add on to what you said, I'd say that television and streaming platforms are cricket's biggest cash flows. Like companies like Disney Star and Viacom 18, they pay billions to secure IPL broadcast rights. And globally, the ICC's tournaments like the World Cup, they also command hefty deals. And there are also like other sponsorships as well, whether it's Coca-Cola, Nike, or local brands. Companies are lining up to associate themselves with cricket because it has a lot of potential, like you said, Arif. And there's also a fun fact for you. The IPL team Chennai Super Kings earned over $75 million in sponsorship deals in 2023 alone. And I think that just speaks volumes by itself. And cricket fans, they love to show their loyalty. From jerseys to caps to autographed bats, merchandise sales bring in millions annually. And then, of course, there's the ticket sales and stadium experiences. Like a packed stadium isn't just about the atmosphere, it's also a huge revenue source. Like the iconic Lord's Cricket Ground, it earns over $5 million per test match in ticket sales and hospitality alone. But cricket's economic impact isn't limited to franchise and players. The sport significantly boosts local and national economies as well. Like for example, in India, cricket is estimated to contribute over $1 billion annually to the GDP, and events like the ICC World Cup provide short-term economic boosts through tourism, job creation, and increased spending in host cities. And cricket also creates jobs, thousands of them, from ground staff to media professionals to food vendors. And, I'd say that the sport supports a vast ecosystem of workers. So, yeah, it does have a lot of potential, like you previously said, Ari.
Mr. Cyrus Ahmed, I see your hand is raised. Would you like to add anything?
Sure. I would like to add on. So I would say cricket, once a game of lazy afternoons and colonial legacy, is now a pulsating global phenomenon, like poised for an extraordinary future. From the roaring stadiums of the Indian Premier League to the quiet dedication of aspiring players on village grounds, cricket is no longer confined to tradition. It is a force that binds nations, fuels economies, and ignites dreams. Its trajectory, marked by numbers and trends, is nothing short of inspiring, and its future is brimming with possibilities that promise to transcend boundaries like never before. I would say cricket is rewriting its future with technology and data. Today, like every ball which is bowled and every run scored is analyzed through with advanced algorithms, and teams are also using AI driven strategies to craft game plans and wearable technology to keep players in peak condition. So these innovations aren't just improving the game, they're ensuring that cricket remains a spectacle of precision and passion. Also, fan engagement has also entered a new dimension now. In 2023, in fact, streaming platforms saw over 400 million hours of IPL matches watched live, where fans participated in polls, predictions, and real time interactions as well. So, this level of immersion guarantees cricket's relevance for generations raised on digital entertainment, ensuring it evolves with the times while staying true to its essence. So, yeah, it looks like cricket's future is pretty bright.
Thank you, Mr. Cyrus Ahmed, for that wonderful introduction on the sport of cricket. Now, moving on, yes, as some of you have highlighting, there's also a lot of broadcasting and sponsorships that have come as opportunities for the sport of cricket. For example, as for the media rights, cricket broadcasting is a multi-billion-dollar industry. BCCI, which I believe is the Cricketing Association of the Republic of India, earns $230 million annually under the new ICC revenue sharing model. And the ICC Men's Cricket World Cup 2023 broke records with broadcasting revenue accounting for $680 million. And tournaments like the IPL and the ICC World Cups attract global brands including Pepsi, Paytm, and Vivo, which pay around $5 to $10 million annually for logo space on team jerseys. And there's also a lot of tourism and hospital business involved in the game of cricket. For example, cricket events have led to a 500% increase in international ticket sales during the border Gavaskar series in 2023. And India receives a consistent flux of international fans for IPL and bilateral matches, with 50% of them also exploring tourist rates. And countries like the New Zealand and Sri Lanka heavily promote cricket matches as part of their tourism campaigns, especially during summer seasons. And they also have created a lot of employment and economic ripple effects this game has created. For example, direct jobs through the hiring of groundsmen, even organizers, media staff, and players. And there's also a lot of indirect jobs created. For example, there is a lot of boosts which other industries get, like hotel management, marketing, broadcasting, and travel agencies. And as for the seasonal work, there's also a lot of even shifting employment sees a temporary spike in detail, transportation, and food service. As for the cricket infrastructure development, recent ICC tournaments have prompted host nations to invest in modernizing stadiums, providing technical upgrades like drones, AI analytics, and eco-friendly designs. And India has also built over five major cricketing venues in the last decade to cater to high-profile events. And India and Australia have also a lot of cricketing good relationship. For example, there's also a lot of bilateral series that generate goodwill and boost business exchange between the good nations, between the nations, which with cricket acting as a soft diplomacy tool. And as for the future process of the cricket, and I firmly believe that all of them are likely to increase a lot in the future, is that like leagues like the IPL are experimenting with international windows to host matches in South Africa and the Middle East. And there's also a lot of increasing interest and sponsors for leagues like the Women's Premier League India in India, and there's also which generates a lot of significant economic prospects. And there's also a lot of digital innovation that adds new revenue streams. For example, NFTs, which present historical moments in cricket, generating that generate millions of dollars. And Mr. Cyrus, guys, I see your hand is raised. Would you like to add anything more? Would you like to add anything more?
I agree with your points. They've been pretty good. But I also had a question for you, Araf. What do you think about cricket's development specifically in Bangladesh, with like the Bangladesh cricket team and the Bangladesh Premier League? Like, what is your opinion on that?
Thank you, Mr. Kazi Cyrus Ahmed, for the brilliant question. And personally, obviously, I am biased myself. And you know why I'm biased? Because I'm a Bangladeshi. And I think that cricket, for me, is a national pride. Cricket is more than a sport for me. And I think it could go as well for you, Cyrus, also for Shazib and for Ari, because cricket is in every Bangladeshi's blood. I've never met a Bangladeshi who doesn't like cricket. And I think all of you would agree with me on this, right? That I don't think we have ever met a Bangladeshi who doesn't like cricket.
Yeah, I'd agree, Araf.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also agree.
So obviously, cricket, I'm heavily biased, but I think in the past few years, Bangladeshi cricket team has some very interesting developments. I think they could be a lot better than they're right now. But cricket is also obviously the most popular sport in Bangladesh. I think it has a fan base of over 50 million people, and cricket directly contributes to the national economy through infrastructure development, sponsorships, advertisement, broadcasting rights, and tourism. And the cricket ecosystem also generates like a revenue of $400 million for Bangladesh. And I think when we talk about Bangladesh cricket, I think it's very significant that we talk about the Bangladesh Premier League, also known as BPL, and it was established in 2012. And it's relatively new, and but it has become a significant part of the T20 league, providing economic benefits and talent development. And the 2023 BPL season attracted $50 million in sponsorships and broadcasting right deals, and the franchise sponsorships account for a major portion of cricket league revenues, with brands like Grameenphone, Walton, and Amra Technologies being prominent contributors. And players in BPL also earn between $20,000 to $100,000 per season, benefiting local talent and incentivizing professional cricket careers. And the league also attracts a lot of international players, I think, which brings a lot of international exposure to the country's economy. And BPL also draws a lot of international visitors, contributing over $30 million annually to balance hospitality and tourism sectors. And I think a lot of positive things about cricket in Bangladesh is that it has promoted investments in different stadiums and in the modernization of different stadiums like the Sher Bangla National Cricket Stadium in Dhaka and the Zahur Ahmed Chowdhury Stadium in Chattogram. And these stadiums also host a lot of domestic and international events, contributing to local economies through tourism, transportation, and accommodations. So that's my opinion on how the cricket industry has been going in Bangladesh. As for the role it plays in the economy, I think it plays a lot of role, because cricket is a big part of the economy, and a lot of companies, they try to broadcast and advertise through the game of cricket, and which again brings in additional revenue. So I think cricket has a lot of positive development in the in Bangladesh. And I think what's more interesting is that if you go to a lot of cricketing tournaments and a lot of cricketing tournaments in the village, in the countryside areas, you'll see that a lot of these people, they're very bright, and the reason they play cricket is that they want to uplift themselves. So I think cricket has a lot of also social impact, because it is a hope for many people who want to live a better life. So that's my opinion. What do you think, Mr. Arif Malik, Mr. Shazib Karim?
Yeah, Araf, like you said that really well, and I'd fully agree with you, Araf, because in Bangladesh, cricket is not just a game; it's a cultural phenomenon. Like from street cricket in Dhaka's bustling alleys to packed stadiums during international matches, cricket unites people across socio-economic lines, like you had said, Araf, and the country's success on the global stage, like winning the ICC Under 19 Cricket World Cup. Well, I know it's a youth team, but still, it's something. And also the consistent performances in the ODIs, it has fueled the sport's popularity in the country. But we can also connect it to the economics, because cricket in Bangladesh has grown into a significant industry. Like for example, the Bangladesh Cricket Board has struck broadcasting deals that reflect the growing market for cricket in the country. Like platforms like Kazi TV and online streaming services have capitalized on the sport's massive fan base. Like for example, matches involving the Bangladesh national team regularly draw millions of viewers, both domestically and abroad as well. Especially from the Bangladeshis living abroad. And while the broadcasting rights might not yet rival those of India or England, they're still increasing. And this growth indicates the sport's potential to generate even more significant revenue. And we can also look at the Bangladesh Premier League, the BPL. I know Cyrus, our guest speaker, he's a big fan of the BPL, and me myself, I also really enjoy watching it. And the BPL is basically Bangladesh's answer to the IPL. And while it's not yet on the same financial level as the IPL, it's still growing, and the league provides a platform for domestic players to showcase their talent, and it also attracts international stars, adding to its appeal. And cricket's economic influence also extends beyond the BCB and its partners. Like, for example, tourism, like the international matches, especially those in Dhaka, it brings in fans from around the world, boosting the local hospitality and tourism industries. And also the youth development, like cricket academies and programs are growing, providing opportunities for young players to build careers in the sport. And it's a really good opportunity for the future generations. And in summary, cricket in Bangladesh, I'd say it's on an exciting trajectory. The passion of the fans, the talent of the players, and the potential for economic growth make it a fascinating study in how sports can drive national development.
Mr. Arif Malik, I see your hand is raised. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, so when we are talking about cricket, I could go on for days and days, and this podcast, I think all of us could talk about cricket for days, and this podcast would never end. But in brevity, I would like to talk about the interesting state of the Bangladesh Premier League, as well as the Bangladesh Cricket Board, also known as the BCB. And first, I would like to talk about BPL. So in BPL, I would say, as you and Shazib have very explicitly mentioned, BPL is making significant strides in the cricketing world, particularly in gathering foreign viewers as well as domestic viewers to watch cricket. And economic wise, I would say it generates a lot of revenue through ticket sales, sponsorships, broadcasting rights, and merchandise. And over the years, sponsorship deals have grown in both number and value, as well as the broadcasting wise. Television and digital platforms have expanded the league's reach, with millions turning in across Bangladesh, as well as lots of expat Bangladeshis living abroad. They use the digital channels to view BPL. And I would say BPL has made significant strides in that way. But at the same time, like IPL and like the Pakistan Super League PSL, which attract top tier players, BPL is, I would say, still not there up yet. But BPL is trying its best to have more players, international players, to play in the league. And I would say over the years, BPL has had some controversies over team ownership, inconsistent player payments in its earlier seasons. But I would say I'm proud of the fact that BPL has sort of overcome those challenges to have all those regulatory hurdles to sort of legitimize itself as a prominent league in the cricketing world. And as for talking about BCB, which was established, Bangladesh Cricket Board, after the Liberation War in 1971, It's the governing body for cricket in Bangladesh, and I would say the BCB's contribution to the development of cricket in Bangladesh just speaks volumes, because in the past 20 years we went from a team from not qualifying in any of the international cricket championships to reaching the quarterfinals in the 2016 cricket World Cup. And this just goes on to show that Bangladeshi players have grown a lot. And recently, the Bangladesh under 19 team just won the World Cup, for beating India. And this just goes on to show that despite being 180 million people, despite having a lot less resources cricketing wise, we still beat one of the, if not the largest cricketing nation in the world. And this just goes on to show the potential of Bangladesh. And the BCB, which sees the men's, women's, and the under 19s league, just in my opinion, is doing a phenomenal job for the under 19 as well as for the women. But I would say for the men's World Cup, which is men's World Cup, I would say Bangladesh still needs some work, particularly in the T20 format, because I think our players are not adapted. I think the main problem is that Bangladeshi players are not adapted to play in stadiums outside of Bangladesh, like in the Shere Bangla National Stadium. I still remember when Bangladesh won the series against Australia, against New Zealand, strongest teams in the world. But outside of the Shere Bangla Stadium, the Bangladeshi players often face challenges. So, what do you guys think? Do you think, just based on the performance of the men's national team, what do you think they need to do in Bangladesh in order to succeed in the cricketing world? Yes, Cyrus, I see your hand. Would you like to chime in?
Sure. So I would say for Bangladesh to be able to be more successful in the international world, our players really need to adapt to different conditions when we're playing on different types of pitches. That is something Bangladesh has been struggling with for a long time now. We always do well in our home ground and even in foreign conditions, which we are more used to from before. But our issue is always when we go into countries with unfamiliar conditions. So like that really brings out our weaknesses in front of the rest of the world. So that's something I feel the Bangladesh team really needs to work on more, and that's something the BCB could improve as well by getting the pitch curators to make more types of pitches in Bangladesh, which is similar to like international pitches in like other countries like Australia, New Zealand, England, these types of countries. So that is something the BCB really needs to look into for Bangladesh's development to continue, because like that is one of the things holding us back from becoming a greater team.
I mean, yeah, Cyrus, I would agree also, and I think you asked a pretty interesting question, and I think my answer would be like investing in the future generations, right? Bangladesh's cricket team, it can improve, but we need to invest in the future generations, provide them with better facilities and everything. And many people, they might argue that India has a better cricket team than us because they invest more in their teams. Like we also need to do that with our future generations, like provide them with better facilities, better opportunities. They need to be able to have the opportunities. Like there are millions of Bangladesh, it's a very dense population. Like there are a lot of people living in Bangladesh, especially the village areas, the rural areas, and there's a lot of potential there as well. Like you can always see young players in the rural areas playing cricket with their friends, and they have potential. They just don't have the opportunities to really express themselves on the big stage. So I think the BCB, they really need to invest in the future generations, provide them with better facilities and better opportunities to really flourish, because they need to make investments in them, in our team. And the only way to do that is by looking forward, by looking into the future, by looking into the new generations. And like I'd say, like what they need to do is basically like the BCB, need to look at the new generation with a positive mindset and really invest in them and try to give them the opportunities to really flourish in the big stage, you know.
I also feel that like in Bangladesh, a lot of the newer players they always come onto the stage. Like most of them always come onto the stage and do really well in like their first 2 to 3 series, like have good performances. But one thing I've noticed is it is a good thing for them to have brand deals and sponsorships and everything, but sometimes they can get too tied into it and then like lose focus with cricket itself. So that's I think one thing maybe the BCB should also look at to like encourage players to like the newer players to just have more focus like in cricket because like when they're looking at brand deals and sponsorships more they just get too tied into the financial aspects and like that is one of the reasons some of our players just deteriorate over time because they lose focus with cricket.
Yeah, Cyrus, I'd agree with that too. Like that's a very interesting point, and that's fully true. You know, it also happens in other sports. You know, young players when they get too much of the spotlight, they really they really lose focus and concentration. And I think, yeah, I'd also agree with you. The BCB and like their maybe their own team coaches, they really need to like build humility and like keep them on the right path and make sure that they're young players, the new generation, that they can really focus on the cricket and the sport itself. You know, I'd agree with that, Cyrus.
Arif, I see your hand is raised. Would you like to add anything?
Yes. I would like to talk about the fact that Cyrus and Shazib mentioned about sponsorships in cricket and particularly how it impacts players. And I would like to say that while I agree that sponsorships often like cause players to lose their main motivation, which is the love and passion for their game. I would say like it sort of also is a powerful incentive because like for the international audience of the Dollar Dialogue podcast, I would like to like let's say the case of Neymar Jr. Neymar Jr. was one of the most fascinating prospects of the footballing world, and Neymar Jr. was seen as the next successor to Messi and Ronaldo. But and I used to watch him play while he was in Barcelona, and he was sort of a very passionate, very not I wouldn't say aggressive, but very passionate footballer who loves showing tricks and skills on the pitch. But I would say Neymar Jr. after the transfer to Paris Saint-Germain, he sort of lost the passion for football and rather was very much delved into the lifestyle of partying and the sort of fame that comes around with being a successful footballer, and which is of course induced by the money. And he's currently in the Saudi league where he was offered an exorbitant amount of money. And Saudi league is relatively new, and instead of playing in the European leagues, which are still quite big, he chose the Saudi league, which is emerging but still not that big yet. So this is a sort of illusion that I like to use when talking about sponsorships, because Neymar he was sort of ruined by the money. But let's talk about Kylian Mbappe, for example. Kylian Mbappe is another very interesting prospect in the footballing world, and he, despite being despite being one of the richest footballers out there, he is still performing at a very high level. And this is because of the fact that sort of the money, sort of the image sort of pushes him. Let's look at and I would like to say that while sponsorships, I agree that sponsorships often ruin the mentality of the game. I think it's a double-edged sword. It can either help you either help you very much to sort of perform at the big leagues and to try your best so you can gain more sponsorships and more money, or it can sort of like tear you down. And in Bangladesh, for example, one player that I really like in the cricketing world, and particularly he hails from Bangladesh, which I'm more proud of, is Shakib Al Hasan was the world's best all-rounder for a number of years, and he was very much involved in the business and around his brand image. And despite that, he performed very well in the World Cups for Bangladesh, and he was sort of the cricket prodigy of Bangladesh. So I would say like sponsorships and brand deals are, I would say, important, but are very important when we look at that. So I would say the solution to that, in my opinion, would be to get a manager or get a managing team that gets you to do your brand images and sponsorships and all those stuff while still having your passion in the game. So would you guys agree? I see Cyrus's hand is raised again.
Yes, Ariba, I definitely agree with you. Sponsorships and brand deals is very significant to cricketers, as also like a point which we haven't mentioned yet. For most sports professions like cricket and other sports like football as well, most players don't get to play for a long time, as like by at least 40, about like at maximum 40, most players retire. So because of that, they don't really get as many years as they would have wanted to in their profession. So I would say brand deals and sponsorships helps, like financially helps out a lot from that perspective, as like they can make up more money till they retire, because they don't have a significant amount of time that they can continue playing. So like that's one of the reasons I would agree brand deals and sponsorships are very important for players, and generally it is also an incentive. Like when you have good brand deals and sponsorships, it does incentivize you to I would say do your best, continue playing, and just improve and do better. But also I would say, like for the newer players, like we were talking about before, I agree with you. They should maybe get managers to be able to handle the brand deals and sponsorships side of things, as like they're just getting into the sport and doing well. So like it is more important for them to have their focus there, so they can continue doing well. And then if they continue doing well, then they'll continue being offered like sponsorships and brand deals. So yeah, that is something I wanted to mention as well. Araf, do you want to add anything?
So I think what we're talking about is very important, but I think one area that I think we should also talk about is the culture and societal impact of cricket. I think we talked a little bit about that, is because when we talk about brands, I think when you talk about brands in a way shape culture, because if you look at the branding of a certain company, or if you look at a branding of a certain industry in a certain country, you'll see that that tells a lot about the culture of that nation. For example, in Bangladesh, whenever there's a branding, for example, Shakib Al Hasan, as Arif has highlighted, is a very branded player in Bangladesh, and the way he talks, like the way he is advertised to people, is that he's advertised as kind of a leader. He's advertised as a kind of a politician leader, because Bangladeshi people are, in my opinion, very politically motivated. They care a lot about politics. I've met with people from over 100 countries around the world, but I've never seen a group of people who are as politically involved as Bangladeshis are, even if they have no direct involvement. Even if they do a simple job, a very simple job, the simplest job you can think of, they're still very much interested in the field of politics. And for this reason, you see that Shakib Al Hasan is still portrayed as a politician. If you took his photo and showed it to a random person from another country, and if you told them what this guy is, and they're gonna say he's a politician. Yeah, yes, it's true. He's a politician, but even his tenure as a cricket player before he was a politician, the photos of him and how they were advertised shows him as a politician, because Bangladeshi people will connect with that. And I think a lot of societal impact and cultural impacts are created because of this branding. For example, the IPL contributes to Indians' entertainment economy, blending Bollywood and cricket for unique fan experiences. For example, celebrity owners like Shah Rukh Khan of KKK and Preeti Zinta of Punjab Kings attract wider audience bases, and emerging players also earn opportunities and well through IPL. And the unheralded players like T. Natarajan and Mohammad Siraj found IPL to be a platform for stardom and financial stability. And cities like Jaipur, Mohali, and Pune experience a surge in small business activity, through food vendors, transport service, and merchandises during IPL season. And now I also like to talk about the future of cricket, about the women's Premier League. I think it's very important that we also talk about the involvement of women in cricket, because that I think that's also big potential. For example, launched in 2023, the women's Premier League sold its media rights for around $120 million for 5 years, showing strong growth potential for women's cricket in India. And there's also a lot of international IPL windows. For example, BCCI is experiencing IPL matches to venues like the UAE, South Africa, and the US to cater to a global audience. And so what, and also the final thing that we should also talk about, I think, is digital innovation and metaverse, the use of blockchain and AR, VR technologies for fan engagement. I think is expected to also drive additional revenues in the future. So what do you think the future of cricket is, and how do you think that future is going to play out, Mr. Cyrus, Kazi Ahmed, or Ari Malik, or Shazib Karim?
Yeah, Araf, I think you brought up a really interesting topic and a very interesting question as well. So I'd say we can take a step back for a moment and think about the bigger picture, the future of cricket, like you said. And so cricket's future cricket's future is undeniably bright, like we all agreed upon, but it's also bound to look very different from its traditional roots. Like for example, shorter formats like T20 cricket have revolutionized the sports, making it faster, more entertaining for some people, and more commercially viable. And leagues like the IPL, BPL, and even newer ones like the SA20 and Major League Cricket are setting the tone for what's to come. So I think like what we can expect is more T20 leagues around the world, and also potential evolution into even shorter formats such as T10 cricket maybe. But however, this also raises a critical question. Will Test cricket, the game's most traditional and longest format, would survive in this fast-paced future? Who knows? And also historically dominated by a handful of countries like India, England, and Australia, cricket is also expanding to new markets. Like the US hosted its first Major League Cricket season in 2023, with significant investments from players and private equity. And also, nations like Germany, the Netherlands, and Japan are starting to build competitive teams backed by the ICC's global development programs. And cricket is also making inroads in regions like the Middle East, especially with the leagues in UAE and Qatar. And so I'd say that the future of cricket is a balancing act. It's about combining the fast-paced excitement of T20s with the strategic depth of test matches as well. It's about growing the sport globally while also honoring its traditional strongholds. It's about embracing technology and modernity without losing the soul of the game. So, cricket's journey is far from over. We said the future for it is going to be very bright, and it's only just the beginning. So, yeah, that's what I think. What do you guys think about this? So yeah, Cyrus, you want to add on? You have your hand raised.
Yeah, I did have a question specifically for like maybe Araf or Arif as well. With these new formats with like shorter versions of cricket like T10 and T20, it is also raising a very big question of like fixing match fixing and these things going on in cricket now, as this is getting more common, and also getting owners and players to do it as well. So what's your opinion on this?
Yes, Cyrus, I think it's a very good point that you raised. I think the shadowy challenges of cricket is, of course, something that needs to be addressed. And I would say like match fixing is something that has been going on in cricket for a lot of time now. And I would say in terms of what it does to in terms of what it does the to the cricketing world, is, in my opinion, it just ruins the spirit of the game, because cricket often is known as the gentleman's game. And I think that in order for cricket to remain as a gentleman's game, or as a game where people are, when I talk about when I say gentleman, or as a colloquial term gentleman, I am actually talking about as being sort of equitable and honest. I think cricket needs to do some things regarding the match fixing, because it is something that has been recurring, particularly in the shorter rapid pace smaller leagues and formats, where less stringent regulations are often put in place. And the ICC, in my opinion, the International Cricketing Corporation, that sort of has the regulatory oversight of the cricket, has, in my opinion, been doing an okay job, because first of all, the ICC has an anti-corruption unit, the ACU, which has its operation to cover all the formats, including the T10 league that you mentioned, Cyrus, to monitor suspicious activities, and they collaborate with local authorities in the home ground to enforce stricter laws against the match fixers, and match fixers often get caught. For example, Steve Smith, who was an Australian cricketer, was caught with match fixing, and match fixing is something that is that is, in my opinion, an issue. But I think the regulatory body is doing an okay job, and also the ICC has been. The laws are being more and more stringent nowadays in order to make sure that match fixing doesn't occur regularly. But I would say one issue of ICC that I would say is particularly eroding the spirit of the game is the fact that the ICC which is the apex body, as I've mentioned, it's sort of dominated by the big three: India, England, and Australia. And most of the financial, if I looked at the financial model of the ICC, and I found that it is actually India is the one that is sort of controlling the ICC at this point, because they're the biggest funders of ICC, and focusing on that. I think the problem with that is when a country sort of has a monopoly, or sort of has the governing authority over, sort of has the authority over the governing body of cricket. I think that creates a problem, and for that, I think the BCCI, which is the head of which is the cricketing body of India, and the ECB, the English cricketing body, and the CA, which is the Australian cricketing body, they need to sort of come to a realization that other countries such as Bangladesh, Afghanistan, USA, even, like, these countries are sort of needs to be involved. And I think this will lead to less mismanagement of the ICC, because at this point in time, the ICC is the people, they have no sort of, like, the governing body sort of has no place to criticize. They have no they have no ability to be able to be criticized, because they're sort of at the monopoly, as I've mentioned. So I think more people needs to be involved, more countries needs to be involved in order to ensure the equity is there. And based on that, I would say, Cyrus, that match fixing, in my opinion, is something that is not that common anymore, as the ICC is penalizing individuals in corrupt practices. But my point is, and something that I think is a bigger issue here, is that the fact that ICC needs to be more inclusive of its nations, to ensure it doesn't have to ensure a couple of the big three nations doesn't have overpower in the organization.
I think I agree with Ari, but I think that India has a lot of influence over the ICC, the Indian Board of Control for Cricket in India. BCCI has a lot of unparalleled influence over the ICC. For example, India contributes an estimated 70% of global cricket revenue, largely through media rights, sponsorships, merchandise, and massive viewership. And major tournaments, bilateral series, and ICC events featuring India consistently dominate television ratings and streaming platforms. And the 2019 ICC Cricket World Cup, which was hosted, I think, in India, India's matches accounted for 5% of total global viewership. And the 2022 ICC T20 World Cup, India's matches attracted over 200 million viewers per game, which again highlights that India has a lot of influence over ICC. And I think one of the things we have to also understand that India has 1 billion people, and for this reason, when 1 billion people love cricket and they watch cricket, obviously India is going to have a lot of influence over the ICC. I don't think that's necessarily bad, but what I think is interesting is that BCCI is set to earn 38.5% of the ICC total revenue, amounting to $231 million annually. And in comparison, other members like England and Australia receive just 6.89%, $41 million, and $37 million respectively. And without India's involvement, global tournaments struggle to secure top-tier sponsors and broadcasters, so which again highlights that the ICC is hugely dependent on India. And the ICC also secured a $3 billion broadcasting deal for 2024 to 2027, which is primarily driven by Indian audiences and Indian viewership influence bidding strategies, with Star Sports and Disney outbidding global competitors to cater to Indian fans. And the Indian Premier League IPL also became a benchmark for cricket economists, with broadcasting deals worth around $6.2 billion for the 2023 to 2027 cycle, dwarfing ICC revenues from global events. And comparatively, ICC tournaments generate around 50 to 7% less in media rights revenue despite their international appeal. And over 60% of ICC sponsors are Indian companies such as Dream 11, Bajus, and Paytm, reflecting Indian dominance on the market. And without India as a cricketing powerhouse, sponsors would lose significant visibility, reducing in ICC's financial appeal. And India's domestic schedule, particularly the IPL, often dictates the ICC's global calendar, and international tools are frequently arranged around IPL, ensuring top players are available for the lucrative leagues, while ICC tournaments are pushed to less competitive slots. And India also has a lot of influence over the ICC. Again, we have said through BCCI, and Indian players are also the most sought after due to their marketability. Their presence in tournament boosts revenues for host nations and ICC events. For example, India's matches attract almost double the audience and TV ratings compared to non-Indian games. And the challenges of ICC independence is that ICC's risk over a reliance on Indian revenues, leaving associate nations underfunded. And unlike other cricket boards, BCCI operates independently from government regulation, allowing it to prioritize profitability over broader ICC objectives such as the development of cricket in emerging nations. And smaller members like Zimbabwe and Afghanistan often depend on BCCI funding rather than ICC, reflecting the centralized power shift. So I don't think necessarily that the Indian influence over ICC is necessarily bad, because India has a lot of people. It has a billion people, so when a billion people are interested, so I think proportionally speaking, in terms of people speaking, obviously India is going to have a lot of influence over ICC. But how much do you think this influence is justified, or what do you think about this influence, Mr. Kazi, Cyrus Ahmed, or Shazib Karim? Mr. Shazib Karim, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, sorry, my mic wasn't turning on, but Araf, yeah, and Araf, Arif, I'd agree with whatever what you guys said, and I think another very interesting topic which we touched on, but we touched on a little bit, is also we can also talk about the technology and fan engagement, for example, because the future of cricket will deeply be intertwined with technology, like technologies like virtual reality, argument reality, AR, and AI driven analytics will make cricket viewing more immersive and interactive. And like, imagine putting a VR headset to sit in front of the front row of a packed stadium, or using apps to predict match outcomes in real time. And like, also the data driven strategy, teams and players are already relying on advanced analytics to optimize performance, and this trend will only grow more and more, making cricket even more strategic and competitive. And the women, like, another big factor is the women's leagues as well. Like, women's cricket is poised for massive growth. Like, leagues like the Women's Premier League in India and the 100 in England have already proven that the women's cricket is commercially viable. Increased media coverage, better pay for players, and more sponsorship deals will drive the growth of the women's game, inspiring the generation of players and fans.
Thank you, for Mr. Shazib, for that amazing contribution. And also, I have a question for Cyrus Ahmed and Ayub Malik and Shazib Karim. You can also chime in. And the question is, and my question is that under the does BCCI's financial leverage over ICC affect global scheduling and policy decisions, and can this undermine ICC's mission of fairness? So, what do you think, Mr. Kazi, Cyrus Ahmed, Shazib Karim, or Ayub Malik? Yes.
Yes, I definitely agree with you, Araf. As I've often noticed, like for example, when IPL is going on, ICC is like very strict about other teams having like like series scheduled then, or any games or any other tournaments being scheduled at the same time as uh, IPL. So that definitely does show the like financial leverage BCCI does hold over ICC, and that is something which does go against ICC's like rule of fairness, because if BCCI had, like, if one single cricket board has more power than the ICC, it becomes unfair for like the other countries as well. And something pretty unfair like happened also last year. I would say because of BCCI's leverage, and this is actually more of a political issue. Like I think the Asia Cup was supposed to be held in Pakistan, but they had to make it hybrid with Sri Lanka because BCCI like refused for the Indian team to be able to travel to Pakistan. So this does show how much leverage BCCI does have over ICC, as ICC is implementing like as many things to help BCCI out with IPL or the Indian team. So yeah, this is something which we like need to improve, as it creates unfairness for other teams.
Thank you, Mr. Kazi Cyrus Ahmed. And also, I have another very interesting question, and I would appreciate if Arif Malik or Shazibam also chimed in, because I think Cyrus has highlighted some very important key points. And I think another important question is that I think we have to also consider the different cultural impact cricket has, and how does cricket's economic growth influences cultural importance in countries like India, England, and Bangladesh. So, what's your opinion on that? Mr. Arif Malik, I see your hand is raised. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, Saurav, sorry, the mic has been truly a nuisance today. Apologies. So yeah, I think in terms of BCCI and the cultural influence that it has, I think it's truly to a great extent, because, in my opinion, BCCI is the governing. BCCI essentially controls the cricketing world, and the BCCI's influence over the cultural aspects is therefore also very prominent as well. And when talking about the cultural aspects, I think one thing that needs to be understood is the demographics of cricket, because the cricket is primarily centered around South Asia. So, and BCCI, being the Indian cricketing body, will obviously have its national identity and the regional representation catered to the South Asian region. And I would say this isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's actually a very nice diffusion of like a cultural synergy, if you if you must, like a cultural synergy where the BCCI's influence extends into India's entertainment industry, and it's sort of like a symbiotic relationship between Bollywood and cricket, where IPL merges with the glamour of the Bollywood world, where we see, for example, the Kolkata Knight Riders, which is sort of owned by Shah Rukh Khan, the Punjab Kings by Preeti Zinta, and these massive actors and actresses with massive following have cricket teams in the largest cricket league in the world. So this just goes on to show that there's a very symbiotic relationship between the Bollywood and cricket. And on top of that, I would say it's sort of a unifying force where despite the top actors and actresses being from different religions, India obviously has a lot of religious politics and those aspects. But I'm not going to go into that space. I'm just gonna say, like, despite those differences, the cricket sort of brings everyone together. So there's a perfect cultural synergy. And I would say the commercialization of this has also influenced the worldwide consumers as well, because cricketers managed by the BCCI, such as Virat Kohli, MS Dhoni, and Sachin Tendulkar, they're not athletes at this point. They're just cultural icons, and they shape trends, sell products, and set local and societal aspirations. And for example, I remember this particular campaign in which Pepsi's "Nothing Official About It" campaign in the 1990s to Swiggy's recent IPL tie-ins. These sort of show that that companies as well, they adapt to the Indian subcontinental region. And I would say this has definitely shaped the dynamics, of course, in terms of what the BCCI influences cricket. But I would say on that aspect, that the BCCI's influence has put I would say Indian cultural aspects number one on the table, and this is reflected everywhere. Even in and even if we think about the recent 2023 Cricket World Cup, we saw that a lot of the majority of the stadiums were packed by Indian fans. And when these Indian fans come to the stadium, they bring their culture with them. They bring their food, they bring their energy, they bring their like language as well to the stadium, and this influences the other foreign people in the stadium. And I would say this has, of course, impacted cricket to a large extent. Let's look at London, for example. London is, of course, one of the economic hubs in the world, but it is a place where there's a lot of different cultures. It's like a cultural fusion, and the Indian subcontinental people are primarily the major demographic over there. So obviously, even foreign countries are to some extent are being blended into the Bollywood and the cricketing aspects of the world. So overall, I think BCCI's influence over the cultural aspects of India is unparalleled. It has truly elevated cricket from a sport to a cultural phenomenon.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Mr. Oh yeah, Shazim Karim, go on.
Okay, yeah, Ari, but I think that was very well said. And to explore this idea and the question that Araf had asked, I'd say that, he specifically asked about countries like India and Bangladesh. And I'd say that in both India and Bangladesh, cricket is much more than just a sport, it's a way of life. And the economic growth of cricket, driven by leagues like the IPL and BPL, has amplified its role as a unifying force. Like in India, cricket transcends the country's complex social and cultural divides. Whether you're from a rural village or a bustling metropolis, cricket brings people together, and stadiums are filled with fans from every walk of life. And while TV broadcasts reach the homes of millions, and in Bangladesh, the success of the national team, the success of the national team in the previous years and also recently as well, has strengthened national pride and cultural identity. And victories in international matches, like beating India in key tournaments, become moments of collective celebration and cultural affirmation. And this, like the economic success of cricket, ensures that these moments are broadcast far and wide, embedding cricket deeper into the cultural fabric of these nations. And this also creates like heroes and role models. Like for example, in India, players like Virat Kohli, MS Dhoni, and Sachin Tendulkar, they aren't just athletes, they're national heroes. Their success inspires millions, particularly young people, to dream big and pursue careers in sports or other non-traditional fields as well. And in Bangladesh, like we have cricketers like Sakib Al Hasan, Mashrafi Mortaza, like they have become symbols of hope and resilience. And their rise from the modest beginnings to international fame resonates with the struggles and aspirations of many Bangladeshis. So I'd say that these players, like economic growth allows these players to build personal brands and also engage in philanthropy and influence cultural values such as hard work, teamwork, and the national pride.
In conclusion, I think that the conclusion that we can draw based on discussion is that the BCCI's financial dominance, driven by India's fan base and the IPL, has positioned India at the core of the global cricket, heavily influencing the ICC's revenue streams and decisions. And the another conclusion that we can draw upon is also that the cricket has a very large cultural and societal role that it plays in different countries, such as in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and the UK, and it is a sport that is likely to grow a lot in the future. So, is that a conclusion that all of you would agree with?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I also agree with it.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for your agreements, and I think that brings us to the end of our discussion for today, episode 13. And episode 13 was a very interesting episode for me, and I think we learned a lot from our discussion today. And as for and that brings us to the end of episode 31, episode 31. That brings, my apologies, that brings us to the end of episode 31, which was on cashing in on cricket, how this sport is scoring big economically with Mr. Kazi Cyrus Ahmed. Mr. Kazi Cyrus, thank you very much for joining into this episode and joining into this discussion. I hope that you really liked it. Are there any final words that you would like to say before we depart for today?
Yeah, I would like to thank you for having me in this discussion, and I feel like we had a very knowledgeable and deep discussion of cricket today.
Thank you, Mr. Kazi Cyrus Ahmed. We really enjoyed having you here. And that brings us to the end of episode 31, which was on cashing in on cricket, how this sport is scoring big economically. And thank you to the audience for listening to this discussion and chiming into this discussion. And we hope to see you next week with another very interesting guest speaker with another very interesting topic. Thank you and goodbye.